The next thing we were looking at in class was error analysis problems. So we want to go through somebody else's work and see where they went wrong, and then fix it and find the actual solution to the problem. So if we look up here, we have our system of equations consists of 2x plus 5y equals -1 and 3x minus 2y equals 27. And for this particular problem, we're going to solve using elimination. So if we look here, their first step for the top equation was to multiply both sides by -3. And their first step for the bottom equation was to multiply both sides by 2. Which we can see looks like they're leaning towards using elimination, because they're trying to get their x's to be 6x and -6x respectively, so that they're going to cancel out, and it'll give us our elimination. It'll eliminate the x variable. So let's look at the first one, make sure they did everything right. So we've got -3 times 2x gives us -6x. That looks good. -3 times 5y gives us -15y. That's right. And -1 times -3 gives us 3. So we know this equation here looks good. The next one, I've got 2x, or 2 times 3x, which is 6x, 2 times -2y, which is -4y, 2 times 7, 54. Alright, so it looks like multiplication, their basic math is good. So we have our two equations, -6x minus 15y, and 6x minus 4y. So now we're going to combine them. And notice here that my x's are going to cancel out because I'm adding these two equations. If I'm adding them, my -6x plus 6x will cancel out, give me 0x, so that it eliminates that variable. I then have -15y plus -4y. Here we see they got a -11. If we check that, if I have -15y and I add -4y, I should get -19y. And then 3 plus 54 equals 57. So we can see we just go through the problem. This is where their problem came up. So the rest of this doesn't even matter, because we found the error about halfway through the problem. Now let's solve it. So I'm going to divide by a -19, divide by a -19, and I got y equals a -3. Okay? If I got y equals -3, I can plug it back into one of my equations up top and solve. So let's do it into the first one. 2x plus 5 times y, so 5 times -3 equals -1. Now let's just do some math. I have one variable and one equation. Can't do anything with my 2x yet. 5 times -3 gives me a -15 equals a -1. If I add 15 to both sides, I'll get 2x equals 14. Divide by 2, I get x equals 7. So once I check it, I can see that y is -3, x is 7. I can write my solution as 7, -3. So that'd be our error analysis using elimination. What we could also do then is we'll do some error analysis using substitution. Remember, the first step of substitution now is to solve one of your variables. Isolate one of your variables. The easiest one, if we look at these two equations here, the easiest one to isolate is going to be my y in the second equation, because all I've got to do is divide by 2, and it looks like that's the first thing that they did. If I divide this by 2, I get y equals 8x divided by 2 gives me a 4x. 14 divided by 2 gives me a plus 7, which is exactly what we've got here. So we check their first step. That looks good. Next thing I do for substitution, once I solve and I find what y is, once I solve and find what y is, so I've got this 4x plus 7, I have to plug it in for x in my equation up above. So I should be plugging in 4x plus 7 in my equation up here for y. So I see I've got my 8x minus 4 times, and I want this to be y. So right here we can see they solved and found that y equals 4x plus 7, but they're plugging in the wrong numbers. So this here is our mistake. Right here, we plugged in the wrong thing. So I'm going to redo this step the way it should look. It should say 8x minus 4 times 4x plus 7 equals 4. Now, once I find my error, I can get rid of the rest of this work, and let's solve this sucker. So I've got one variable, one equation. First thing I should do is distribute negative 4 to both of these. Negative 4 times 4x is negative 16x. Negative 4 times 7 is negative 28. I've got the whole thing is equal to 4. So I've got 8x. Now I want to combine my like terms. 8x minus 16x gives me a negative 8x. Minus 28 equals 4. And the last thing, add 28, add 28. So negative 8x equals 32. To solve for x, I divide by a negative 8, and I get x equals negative 4. So the first thing I find is x equals negative 4. Since I did use substitution, I know up here that y equals 4 times x plus 7. And I know that x equals negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in negative 4 for x up here. So I'm going to put my negative 4 here. Plugging it in there. And I'll write the rest of my equation. Y equals 4 times x, which is negative 4, plus 7. Y equals negative 16 plus 7. Y equals negative 9. Boom. So we went back through, we found their mistake, and then we found the new solution to be negative 4, negative 9.